President Donald Trump imposed a 25% tariff on imports from Canada and Mexico on Tuesday, along with an additional 10% tariff on Chinese imports. This decision represents an unprecedented use of the president's emergency economic powers. Because these measures were implemented so quickly, the new tariffs are now in effect, meaning that U.S. importers and consumers will feel the impact almost immediately. The consequences of these tariffs are significant, as trade with Canada, Mexico, and China accounted for approximately 40% of the United States' total goods trade in 2024. The application of these tariffs functions like a switch being turned on, causing an immediate rise in costs for importers. For instance, importing $100,000 worth of limes from Mexico will now cost $125,000, with the additional $25,000 being paid directly to U.S. Customs and Border Protection upon crossing the border. This increase in costs will inevitably be passed on to consumers, leading to higher prices for imported goods. The Tax Policy Center estimates that these tariffs alone will cost the average American household an additional $930 per year by 2026. Major U.S. business leaders have reacted swiftly, warning about the economic effects of these tariffs. Target CEO Brian Cornell stated that prices for grocery items, particularly fruits and vegetables imported from Mexico, could rise within days. This situation highlights how much power President Trump wields over global commerce. However, it also underscores the limits of this authority. The Trump administration justifies these tariffs by invoking the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEPA, a national security law. Historically, this law has been used to impose economic sanctions on foreign dictators or terrorist organizations. However, the administration now argues that the illicit fentanyl trade and immigration at the Mexican border qualify as unusual and extraordinary foreign threats to U.S. national security, thereby justifying the use of emergency powers. Despite this broad assertion of presidential authority, implementing such sweeping measures is not without legal and logistical challenges. Many legal challenges are expected, as the justification for these tariffs on national security grounds is controversial. Additionally, the enforcement of these tariffs has led to administrative difficulties, particularly regarding so-called de minimis imports. These imports, which refer to shipments valued at $800 or less, have historically been exempt from U.S. tariffs. This exemption has become increasingly significant in recent years, especially with the rise of e-commerce platforms like Temu and Shine, which ship goods directly from China to American consumers. Imposing tariffs on these low-value shipments presents a major logistical challenge, since existing customs infrastructure is not designed to process such a high volume of individual declarations and tariff payments. In 2024 alone, the U.S. received over 1.3 billion de minimis shipments. To manage this influx, the government would need to hire thousands of new customs agents, a process that takes time. Nevertheless, in early February, Trump announced that the U.S. would begin collecting tariffs on these shipments. The implementation of this decision caused immediate disruptions. On February 4th, the U.S. Postal Service, USPS, suspended all parcel delivery services from China and Hong Kong until further notice due to the lack of a system for collecting these new tariffs. However, Facing backlash and logistical issues, USPS reversed its decision the following day, resuming package processing without collecting any duties. Soon after, the Trump administration formally announced a delay in the collection of tariffs on de minimis imports from China until an adequate system could be put in place to manage these shipments efficiently. A similar situation occurred with Canada and Mexico. On Sunday, the White House announced temporary exemptions for these two countries to prevent immediate disruptions in trade. It remains unclear when a functioning tariff collection system for de minimis imports will be established. A spokeswoman for Customs and Border Protection stated that the agency must quickly adapt to these new requirements while ensuring smooth operations. However, there is uncertainty about whether there are enough personnel and resources available to handle the immense volume of incoming packages. The delay in implementing de minimis tariffs highlights the limits of presidential power in trade matters. While President Trump can impose tariffs quickly and unilaterally under IEEPA, their practical enforcement requires an efficient administrative and logistical system that does not yet exist. The government must resolve key issues such as how tariffs will be calculated and paid, as well as how customs officials will process millions of new data points for individual shipments. Ultimately, the rollout of these tariffs illustrates the tension between political ambitions and bureaucratic realities. While the Trump administration has succeeded in imposing these tariffs at record speed, their actual enforcement could take months, if not longer, due to administrative challenges and anticipated legal battles.